Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Mismapasion. And with the regular season of women's football just about completing a trip around the sun, depending on what you watch, of course, I wanted to make a review of the 23-24 season and analyze what I think have been some of the key moments that have defined the beautiful game across this season. So, pretty much, this is a review, and where better to start but on the pitch. Having digested a copious amount of women's football across many leagues in Europe, I can say for sure that the quality on the pitches continues to get better and better. No league was ever shy of a weekly goal fest or valiant comeback, and the styles of play are as diverse as they come, like in the men's game. Whether you're looking for total football, quick counters, or gruff elbow grease type of games, you're absolutely spoiled for choice whether you're watching in Sweden or in England. For me, though, arguably the best, most accessible league to see all of this in one is the Frauen Bundesliga. The German top division was a regular hotspot of non-stop action on the pitch, with special mention going out to Eintracht Frankfurt and Hoffenheim, who I thought were amongst the very best in the league, alongside the usual suspects like Wolfsburg and, of course, the current champions Bayern Munich. For me, it always felt like a treat to watch those teams play in particular, and I can only hope that they continue to grow and evolve to be regular competitors sooner rather than later. Other areas on the pitch that saw massive improvement was in the stands, as more fans were present across the various domestic leagues. It of course goes without saying that it's the European heavyweights like Arsenal and Barcelona who enjoyed the most turnouts this season, but other teams that may not be as notorious in the women's game saw a rise in supporter turnout, which is undeniably a clear indication of the desire and thirst for women's football across the board, and this is something that will only go from strength to strength in ensuing seasons. And sticking with things that concern the pitch, and unfortunately this is where we get a little bit more on the negative side, because as much as it has been a well-known issue for a long time now, there has, at least in my opinion, not enough progress made when it comes to ACL injuries. It is admittedly a tired subject to discuss, but it would genuinely be irresponsible to not continue to raise the issue, such as its significance. Of course, one of the high-profile ACL injuries that occurred this season was from Sam Kerr, who was actually on the mend and building up some form off the back of a hampered World Cup campaign on home soil due to a prior injury. There have been many other cases of ACL-related injuries that won't have made the mainstream news, but nevertheless, it still remains a major issue. And in spite of the baby steps made by stakeholders like Nike, who recently developed the Luna Phantom, a specialized women's boot that helps to deal with reducing the risk of major injury like an ACL, other companies, clubs, and officials within the game have not made enough of a step forward to properly address the health and welfare of their female footballers. And whilst on the issue of health and welfare, there is another major aspect of women's football that is in a deplorable condition. In the past, I have covered many issues such as the Canadian and Spanish federations being accused of mistreating its players on so many levels, from providing basic needs that a player requires to train and perform at a top standard to, of course, the many cases of sexual harassment from those in authority. Unfortunately, this trend has continued on both a national and domestic level. Recently, news has come out of the Argentine women's national team where players have left their camp due to the federation's failure to provide basics such as transport, food, and even going as far as refusing to pay the players because their next set of games are on home soil. The players involved have defined the situation as humiliating, and it's not hard to sympathize with them because under no circumstances would we see such things occurring on the men's side, and it is a troubling precedent that is continuing to be set in the wake of other recent incidents from the likes of the Jamaica women's team, which I have previously covered, which highlight just how prescient these issues continue to be and just how much women's football continues to be looked down upon by so many federations and other organizations in spite of its undeniability as a viable product in the eyes of the majority. Even when looking away from financial troubles in the women's game, the continued and highlighted issues of player safety and welfare remain firmly in the limelight, with those in charge needing to do a better job in what I regard as their subpar efforts so far. Cases of sexual harassment and assault remain rife within the women's game, with incidents such as those involving Necaxa Femenil players and their former coach Jorge Gomez rocking the Liga MX not too long ago, with the residual aftertaste still being so strong given the ongoing uncertainty regarding his status at the club, as even though he is no longer the coach, he still has access to all the club's facilities and is still allowed to interact with the players. You don't need to be a scholar to understand just how unbelievably horrid that situation is for all involved. And many cases like this remain rife in the game when, realistically speaking, it should not be the case. And the fact that people like this are openly allowed to continue operating the space shows just how contemptuous clubs and football's governing bodies hold women, which is unfortunately the standard as things are currently. Welfare wise, and things aren't so dandy either. I've already talked about the ACL pandemic going on in women's football, but it would appear that just like aforementioned national federations, clubs are taking liberties with their female players' well-being in general. Although right now it is hearsay, there have been noises coming out of Arsenal that the likes of the outgoing Viviana Miedema were left less than satisfied with the general medical and coaching treatment that had been administered by the club staff. If any of these accusations are found to be true, of course, not only does it mean that the club need to look into these issues, but it is reflective that if such an issue is present at a major club like Arsenal, then one can only assume that it gets worse when you go down the levels of football clubs. And as a general observation, women's players do not appear to be heavily valued by the clubs they play for. Maybe it's just because I'm viewing this from the lens of what I'm used to when it comes to consuming football material and media, but it seems really unfair that women's players do not enjoy the same level of financial security like their male counterparts when it comes to contracts. It's already well documented that women are vastly underpaid in comparison to men in football, but I think it's a bit much when you are now also signing them on to short term contracts that, from what I've seen, rarely go over 3 years, which results in every season having a massive exodus of players from different leagues across the world whose contracts aren't being renewed by clubs, whether they're established stars or players on the rise. It leaves prospective players question the viability of a career in women's football as a result, as you can find yourself unemployed at any moment, which is again detrimental to the growth and progress of women's football. So far, there's been a lot of negative things to highlight when it comes to the current state of women's football, and although there are many issues that I can still highlight in this video, like the current state in Spain off the back of the recent successes which have not been met with proactive measures from the RFEF, you pretty much get the point that there is still a ways to go before the game is in anything near a respectable state. However, in spite of all these shortcomings, until they're fixed, we must nevertheless pay homage to some of the good that we have seen in the game, apart from the previously mentioned improvement in quality on the pitch and better support from fans. One of these things is the rise in the commercial and marketability of women's football across the board. I don't think it's hard to say that women's football is cemented in the mainstream now, as you can pretty much see it almost everywhere, from players' names being on the backs of people of all ages, races, and ethnicities, brands going all in on creating individual identities for women's teams such as Bayern Munich and Arsenal receiving their own bespoke away kits from Adidas, and Nike making women's national team kits available in men's sizing, which is something I wish Adidas would do, and Puma as well. Additionally, more efforts are going into investing into the future of women's football, with many organizations engaging in initiatives that are focused on providing pathways for more young girls to pursue a life in football, which hopefully will come to pass when the time comes. And who could possibly forget the new maternal health protocols that have been recently introduced, with coaches now being guaranteed at least 14 weeks paid maternity leave during and after pregnancy, in addition to reserving the right to request for leave for maternal, menstrual, adoption, or familial reasons. This is the kind of security that female footballers deserve and is a very good step in the right direction from football's governing body. Women's football is virtually bursting at the seams, and more people are invested in it. And to all the people leading the charge in making this machine continually tick over and over again, I thank you. Overall, as a summary, I think I can say women's football, though it has taken some important and pivotal steps forward, it still remains chained down by the iniquities of those who govern it. There is no feasible reason that can justify the lack of ambition or improvement in attention that higher ups have not given to women's football, because generally speaking, the ingredients for success are there. Fan interest is continually on the rise. There is an abundance of marketable teams and players across the board, and investors from outside football slowly but surely are coming in to stake a claim in it. Those in charge at the top now, more than ever, must match and in most cases even surpass the natural growth that has been witnessed just over the past season, because there is no better time than now to support the natural growth that the women's game has enjoyed so far. Thank you ever so much as always for watching. There are a lot of areas of this review that I did not manage to cover for the sake of time, such as UEFA's announcement of a brand new competition, for example, for the return of the Super League, which are also important aspects that made the 23-24 season what it was. There are many examples like this that are just as, if not more important than the ones I went into detail with in this video. So if you have any that you would like to talk about, then make sure you leave a comment, like and share this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for even more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.